I signed the papers without complaint, not because I agreed, but because I had recordings. The estate lawyer's pen sat in its holder between us, gold-plated and heavy. Rain blurred the window behind Vanessa's head. My sister had positioned herself where the light would catch her just right, backlit, softer, the way she'd arranged herself at Mom's funeral when the photographer came. She thought she'd won. Her breathing had steadied over the past 20 minutes as I initialed each page. The house. The studio. Mom's paintings, her pottery wheel, 31 years of accumulated life. All transferring to Vanessa under the October 14th will, the one signed 9 days before Mom died, when hospice logs showed her heavily sedated, minimally responsive, sleeping 20-plus hours per day. "I'm glad we could do this civilly," Vanessa said. She touched the black pearl necklace at her throat. Mom's necklace. She'd taken it from the jewelry box the day after the funeral. Mom would have wanted us to stay close. I reached for the pen. "You're being so gracious about this, Lila." Her voice had that grief counselor softness she'd perfected. "I know it's not what you expected, but Mom made her choice. She knew I'd honor her wishes." I signed the final page. Set the pen down. Vanessa exhaled. I watched her shoulders drop half an inch. The lawyer cleared her throat. "Actually, before we finalize, Ms. Monroe has requested we review some additional documentation that may affect the validity of these proceedings." The color didn't drain from Vanessa's face. "That's movie language." What happened was smaller, a tightening around her eyes, her hand freezing on Mom's necklace. "Additional documentation?" I reached into my bag. The USB drive was small, black, unremarkable. Inside, 63 audio files, doorbell footage, medical records, text messages, a forensic handwriting analysis. 3 weeks of investigation compressed into 2 gigabytes. "I'm contesting this will," I said. "Evidence suggests it was executed under undue influence while the testator was incapacitated." I placed the drive on the table. Vanessa stared at it. Her fingers tightened around the pearls. "Shall we begin?" Mom taught high school art for 31 years before retiring to a craftsman bungalow in Portland. Studio in the converted garage. Magnolia tree she'd planted the year I was born. The house was worth maybe $400,000, but it held 63 paintings, her pottery wheel, books annotated in her careful handwriting. Vanessa and I grew up there. She was 4 years older, louder, better at making Mom laugh at dinner parties. I was the one who sat in the studio mixing paints while Mom worked. We'd been close once. She moved to Seattle for tech, married a software engineer, divorced him. I stayed in Portland, taught middle school English, bought a condo near the river. The cancer diagnosis came in March. Pancreatic, stage 4. 6 to 12 months. Mom chose comfort care and kept painting until her hands wouldn't hold the brush. Vanessa came home immediately. Took a leave from work, moved into the guest room, organized medication schedules. I came after school, meals, studio cleanup, insurance calls. We split the work. Vanessa handled medical appointments. I handled everything else. Mom died on a Thursday in October, both of us beside her bed. The magnolia tree was losing its leaves. When the hospice nurse confirmed the time, Vanessa whispered, "She's at peace now." The will reading was scheduled for the following Tuesday. The lawyer read the signature date, October 14th, 9 days before Mom died. I remembered that day clearly. I'd brought Mom pho from the Vietnamese place on Hawthorne. She could barely lift the spoon. Morphine kept her sedated, words slurred when she spoke at all. "I don't remember her being alert then," I said. "She had a window around 6 p.m., Vanessa said quickly. "After you left. She was very clear. The house, studio, contents, investment account, all to Vanessa. To me, Mom's book collection and her chipped coffee mug that said, 'World's okayest mom.'" I could contest, the lawyer explained, but the will was witnessed and notarized. I thanked her. Vanessa hugged me in the parking lot. Perfume too strong. Mom knew I'd take care of everything. This makes sense, right? I drove home and sat in my car for 20 minutes. I pulled up the photo I'd taken that day. Mom at 5:47 p.m., eyes closed, breathing shallow, for line running into her arm. My notes app showed medication times: morphine at 2 p.m., 6 p.m., 10 p.m. Vanessa said 6 p.m. The window of clarity. Then I remembered the doorbell camera. I'd installed it in August when Mom started having night confusion. Motion activated, recording everything at the front door and driveway. I opened the app and scrolled to October. October 8th, 3:42 p.m., Vanessa's car, then a second car. A woman in business casual carrying a leather portfolio. Inside for 37 minutes while I taught 8th graders about persuasive writing. October 9th, 11:18 a.m. Same woman, same portfolio. 21 minutes. October 14th, 5:52 p.m. The woman again. She left at 6:34 p.m. I'd left at 5:30 after feeding Mom and checking her medication with the hospice nurse. Vanessa had been making phone calls about the funeral home. "Go home and rest," she told me. "I've got tonight." The woman was a mobile notary. Cascade Notary Services. I found her card online, specializing in estate planning and end-of-life documents. I called, asked what was required to notarize a will for someone on hospice. The testator must be of sound mind, alert, oriented, able to understand what they're signing. And if they're on heavy pain medication? Red flag. We assess capacity. Any doubt, we don't proceed. I hung up and requested Mom's medical records from hospice. They arrived Friday. Medication logs matched mine exactly. Morphine every 4 hours starting October 12th, increased dosage on the 13th. Nurse's notes: lethargic, minimally responsive, sleeping 20+ hours per day. October 14th, 6:15 p.m. Patient heavily sedated, no meaningful conversation possible. 15 minutes before Vanessa's window of clarity. I printed everything. I went through my text messages with Vanessa. September 22nd, Vanessa. Mom's being really stubborn about the house. Keeps saying she wants to think about it. September 29th, Vanessa. Finally got her to agree to meet with an estate planner. She's exhausted, so I'm handling details. October 3rd, Vanessa. Estate lawyer says we need to move fast before she gets too sick. October 7th, me. I thought Mom had a will from 2019? October 7th, Vanessa. That one's outdated. This is better. Trust me. I did trust her. I pulled out the card from Mom's hospice nurse, grief counselor's number on the back, note about requesting medical records. I'd already requested them. Now I needed the old will. I found it in Mom's filing cabinet the next day, in a folder labeled Estate Planning, 2019. Drafted by her longtime attorney, everything split 50-50 between Vanessa and me. Signed while Mom was healthy, teaching her last semester before retirement. I called a probate attorney named Richard Chen on Monday. His office was downtown, glass and steel and a view of the Willamette. "Tell me everything," he said. I told him about October 14th. The morphine. The notary. The window of clarity that the medical records contradicted. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he set down his pen. "I need to ask you something difficult," he said. "Why would your sister do this? 400,000 split 2 ways is still 200,000 each. What was she desperate for?" I'd been asking myself the same thing. Vanessa made good money in tech marketing. The divorce settlement had been fair. But then I remembered something from last Christmas, a comment she'd made about Seattle real estate, about leveraging assets, about needing to make a move, before the market shifted. She quit her job in July, I said slowly. She told Mom it was to take care of her, but what if she was already planning to liquidate the house? Seattle's expensive. If she was over-leveraged on her condo, needed cash fast. Richard made a note. That's motive. Now let's establish opportunity and means. He pulled out a legal pad. The doorbell footage, the medical records, the text messages, that's all circumstantial. We need the notary's testimony. And we need that 2019 will to show what your mother's actual wishes were when she was competent. What if the October will is legitimate? I asked. What if Mom really did have a lucid moment? Then your sister has nothing to worry about. Richard leaned forward. But if she forged your mother's signature while she was unconscious, that's not a civil dispute. That's elder abuse and fraud. The DA gets involved. I looked out the window at the river. She's still my sister. She's also someone who potentially manipulated your dying mother for money. I thought about Mom's hands in those final weeks. Too weak to hold a paintbrush. Too weak to hold a pen without help. File the petition, I said. Richard nodded. The court will assign an investigator. They'll interview the notary, review the evidence, subpoena records. This becomes public. Your family will know. My family needs to know. He pulled out the paperwork. Then let's start. I signed my name at the bottom. My signature was clear and steady. Nothing like the wobbling scrawl on the October 14th will. Nothing like what someone's hand looks like when someone else is moving it. I didn't confront Vanessa. I taught my classes, graded essays about smartphone bans, attended a department meeting. I responded to Vanessa's texts about clearing Mom's closet with neutral replies. Sounds good. Whatever works. I'm free Saturday. Friday night, I sat in my condo and made a list on the back of a student's abandoned homework. What I knew. What I could prove. What I needed. Richard filed the petition on Wednesday. The court assigned a probate investigator named Sarah Moreno, former forensic accountant, specialized in elder abuse cases. She called me Friday. I need your mother's phone records, bank statements, and all communications with your sister about the estate, she said. I'll interview the notary, hospice staff, anyone who had contact with your mother in her final weeks. I have most of that already. Good. How fast can you get it to me? Today. Even better. I didn't tell Vanessa. She texted Saturday about moving Mom's pottery wheel to her garage. I wrote back, let's wait until probate closes. Thumbs up emoji. I drove to Mom's grave that afternoon. The magnolia tree in her yard was bare, branches black against the November sky. I sat on the wet grass and talked to her the way I used to talk to her in the studio, not expecting answers, just thinking out loud. Vanessa's going to say I'm doing this for money, I said. She'll make it sound like I'm the greedy one. But you split everything evenly in the real will. You wanted us to be fair to each other. The wind moved through the cemetery. I found your note, I continued, the one in the O'Keefe book, where you said Vanessa made you doubt yourself, made you think I wouldn't care about the house. I do care. Not about the house, about what she did to you when you were too tired to fight back. A crow landed on a headstone 3 rows over. She held your hand and moved it across that paper while you were unconscious. And I'm not going to let her get away with it. I stayed until the sun dropped behind the trees. On the drive home, I stopped at the Vietnamese place and ordered pho. Ate it in my car in the parking lot, thinking about the last meal I'd brought to Mom. She'd managed 3 bites. Sarah Moreno's office was in a converted warehouse near the river, shared with a PI firm and a forensic document examiner. She was maybe 50, gray hair cut short, reading glasses on a chain. Her desk was organized chaos, files stacked in precise columns, each labeled with case numbers. Sit. She pointed to a chair. Tell me about your sister before she moved home. We weren't close, but we weren't enemies either. Birthday calls, occasional visits. Her financial situation? She said she was fine. Tech marketing, decent salary. Sarah pulled out a folder. I pulled her credit report. She's $73,000 in debt. Maxed credit cards, personal loan from a peer-to-peer lender, second mortgage on her Seattle condo. The leave of absence from work was involuntary. Her company downsized in June. She's been unemployed since July. The room felt very quiet. She never told Mom that, I said. No. According to her LinkedIn, she's still employed. Sarah flipped to another page. I also pulled your mother's bank records. 5 transfers to your sister between July and September. $15,000, $12,000, $8,000, $20,000, $11,000. Total of $66,000. She turned the paper toward me. Mom's handwriting on the memo lines, gift to Vanessa. Mom never mentioned giving her money. The transfers stop in late September, right when the new will was drafted. Sarah removed her glasses. Here's what I think happened. Your sister was drowning financially, came home under the pretense of caregiving, convinced your mother to give her money. When that ran out, she needed a bigger play. The house. But Mom had a will that split everything, which is why your sister needed a new one. Sarah opened another file. I've subpoenaed the notary's records. She's required to keep detailed documentation of every signing, including photographs and mental capacity assessments. I should have those by Wednesday. And if the records show Mom wasn't capable, then we have fraud. Sarah leaned back in her chair. But I need you to understand something. If we prove this, forged signature, exploitation of a vulnerable adult, this doesn't stay civil. The DA prosecutes. Your sister goes to prison. I looked at my hands. They were steadier than I expected. 400,000 split 2 ways is 200,000 each, I said. She would have gotten half anyway. She didn't need to do this. She was $73,000 in debt and unemployed. She needed immediate cash, and she needed all of it. Sarah's voice wasn't unkind, just factual. People do terrible things when they're desperate, but terrible things have consequences. Outside, rain started again. Portland rain, steady and gray. What if she just gives back the house? I asked. Admits what she did, agrees to the 50-50 split? That ship sailed when she forged your mother's signature. Sarah put her glasses back on. You need to decide if you want the truth more than you want to protect her. I thought about Mom's hand, too weak to hold a pen. I thought about Vanessa guiding it across the paper. Get the notary's records, I said. The court served Vanessa on Tuesday. She called at 10:47 a.m., during my planning period. What is this? Not shaking. Hard. I walked into the hallway. A petition to invalidate the October will. You're challenging Mom's wishes? I'm challenging a will signed while she was unconscious. Silence. Breathing. Mom wanted me to have the house. She told me multiple times. Maybe she did. But she didn't sign that document. The medical records prove it. Records can be wrong. Doorbell cameras don't lie. Sharp intake of breath. I have footage of the notary arriving at 5:52 p.m. and leaving at 6:34 p.m. on October 14th. I have medication logs showing morphine administered at 6 p.m. I have hospice notes documenting Mom as heavily sedated at 6:15. I have your search history from October 13th, how to get a will notarized for someone on hospice. The silence stretched longer this time. You're twisting everything, Vanessa said finally. This is grief. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking very clearly. Lila, please. Her voice shifted, softened. We can work this out. I'll give you 200,000. We'll sell the house and split it. Just drop the petition. If Mom wanted me to have half, she would have left me half in a will she actually signed. She did sign it. Then you have nothing to worry about. The investigation will prove that. Long silence. I gave up everything to take care of her, Vanessa said quietly. You have no idea what those months cost me. I know exactly what they cost you. 66,000 in unauthorized withdrawals from Mom's account while you had medical power of attorney. I heard something break on her end. Glass, maybe. A mug hitting a wall. You're going to regret this, she said. Probably. But less than I'd regret letting you get away with it. I hung up. My hands were shaking now. I went to the bathroom, ran cold water, pressed wet paper towels against my wrists until the bell rang for fourth period. Then I taught To Kill a Mockingbird like nothing had happened. Sarah called 3 days later. The notary is cooperating. You need to see this. Her office. Laptop open, voice recorder between us. Karen Westfall keeps digital records of all signings. Sarah turned the screen toward me, including photographs. Mom propped up in bed, eyes half closed, head tilted. Timestamp, October 14th, 2024, 6:08 p.m. Not someone about to sign a will. Someone barely conscious. Sarah clicked to the next image. Mom's hand held by someone else's, Vanessa's silver bracelet visible in the frame. Guiding a pen across paper. The signature wobbled, uneven. Nothing like Mom's clear script. Karen says your sister explained that your mother had tremors, needed help steadying her hand. Your mother's eyes were open. She appeared to nod when asked if she understood the document. Sarah pulled out a printed form. But Karen documented concerns. Her official log, testator appeared heavily medicated. Minimal verbal response. Signing assistance required. Validity questionable. Then why did she notarize it? Because your sister insisted, your mother made marks on the paper, and Karen didn't have clear grounds to refuse. But she documented everything. Sarah opened another file. Phone records. Vanessa's search history from October 13th, printed in black and white. How to get a will notarized for someone on hospice. Can someone sign a will while on morphine? What makes a will legally binding in Oregon? October 15th. Can a will be contested? How long does probate take? She knew it wasn't legitimate, I said. Sarah pulled out one more document. Here's the worst part. Your mother met with an estate planner in September. His name is Robert Katz. He has notes from September 23rd. Your mother told him she wanted everything split equally. He drafted a will. Your mother scheduled a signing for October 2nd. What happened October 2nd? Your sister called and canceled. Said your mother had changed her mind. Sarah slid a photocopy across the desk. Handwritten note. Cream-colored paper. Mom's shaky writing. Where did you find this? Tucked inside a Georgia O'Keeffe book in your mother's studio. Dated September 30th. I read. V keeps pushing me to change the will. Says Lila doesn't need the house, has her own place, won't appreciate it like V will. I told her I want to be fair to both my girls. She cried. Said I'm choosing Lila over her. I'm too tired to fight. Maybe she's right. Maybe Lila won't care. The note ended mid-thought. Mom's handwriting trailing off at the page edge. She made Mom doubt herself, I said. Yes. Sarah's voice was quiet. And then she waited until your mother was too weak to resist. I looked at the photograph again. Vanessa's hand gripping Mom's. The wobbling signature that wasn't really a signature at all. My throat closed. I couldn't speak for a full minute. Sarah handed me a bound report. Forensic document analysis. I sent both signatures, July 2019 and October 2024, to an examiner. His report came back this morning. I flipped to the conclusion. The signature dated October 14, 2024 shows evidence of guided hand signing. Pressure points, stroke angles, and letter formation are inconsistent with the testator's known exemplars. The tremor pattern suggests external force rather than internal motor control. It is my expert opinion that the testator did not independently execute this signature. She held Mom's hand and moved it, I said. Yes. While Mom was sedated. Yes. Sarah pulled out another document. I also found hospital records from July. Your mother had carpal tunnel surgery on her right hand, her dominant hand. Post-op notes show full recovery, steady grip, normal fine motor control. Here's her signature from a medical release form dated July 28th. She placed it next to the October signature. July, clear, confident, each letter precisely formed. October, shaking, uncertain, letters collapsing into each other. That's not age or illness, Sarah said. That's someone else controlling the movement. I stared at both signatures. Mom's real one. The forgery Vanessa had created using Mom's unconscious hand as a tool. The DA is reviewing the case, Sarah continued. They'll decide about criminal charges. But for probate purposes, we have everything we need. The October will is fraud. The court will revert to the 2019 will, 50-50 split. I looked at the photo again. Mom's half-closed eyes. Vanessa's fingers wrapped around hers. The pen moving across paper in someone else's rhythm. How long has she been planning this? I asked. Sarah checked her notes. The debt goes back 2 years. The unemployment happened in June. My guess? She came home in July already knowing she needed the house. Everything after that was execution. 7 months. Vanessa had spent 7 months positioning herself, manipulating Mom, waiting for the right moment to forge a signature. I want to go all the way, I said. Whatever that means. Sarah nodded. Then we go to court. The probate hearing was January 12th, in a courtroom that smelled like old wood and furniture polish. Judge Patricia Okoye presiding, 60-something, steel-gray hair, reading glasses. Vanessa sat at the opposite table with her attorney, Douglas Reed. Expensive suit, irritated expression. Richard Chin laid out our case without theatrics. Medical records. Doorbell footage. The notary's photographs and sworn statement. The forensic handwriting analysis. Mom's note from the O'Keefe book. Judge Okoye examined each piece of evidence without expression. Mr. Reed, she said. Response. Douglas Reed stood. Your Honor, my client acted in good faith throughout her mother's final illness. The decedent expressed clear wishes that the house remain with Ms. Bennett, who sacrificed her career to provide care. The October will reflects those wishes. Any technical irregularities in execution don't negate testamentary intent. Technical irregularities. Judge Okoye set down the forensic report. Mr. Chen has presented evidence of a signature executed while the testator was documented as heavily sedated and minimally responsive. Your client's hand is visible in the notary's photograph, guiding the testator's hand. That's not a technical irregularity, Counselor. That's potential fraud. Douglas Reed's jaw tightened. My client was helping her mother, who had tremors. Your client was manipulating a dying woman. Judge Okoye pulled out another document. I've also reviewed the financial records. 5 transfers totaling $66,000 from the decedent's account to your client, all made while your client held medical power of attorney. The bank has confirmed your client made these transfers alone, at a branch the decedent never used. She then documented them as gifts in the memo lines. Douglas leaned down. Vanessa whispered something urgent in his ear. "Your Honor," he said, "those transfers were legitimate gifts. The decedent was supporting my client during a difficult time. The decedent was dying of cancer while your client was stealing from her." Judge Okoye closed the file. This court finds clear and convincing evidence that the October 14th will was executed under undue influence and does not reflect the true testamentary intent of Patricia Monroe. The October will is hereby declared null and void. Vanessa's face went rigid. The court reverts to the July 2019 will, which distributes the estate equally between both daughters. Judge Okoye looked directly at Vanessa. "Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. Evidence suggests forgery, fraud, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult." Vanessa grabbed Douglas's arm. He shook his head slightly. "Your Honor," Douglas said, "my client would like to address the court." Judge Okoye nodded once. Vanessa stood. "She didn't look at me. I loved our mother," she said. Her voice was steady, practiced. "Everything I did was because I loved her. I gave up my job, my life, to be there. I sat with her through every bad night, every moment of pain. And Mom knew that. She wanted me to have the house. She told me." "Did she tell you on October 14th? Judge Okoye asked. Vanessa's mouth opened, closed. "Did your mother, while capable of understanding what she was signing, tell you she wanted to disinherit her younger daughter?" The morphine made her confused about dates, but she was clear about her wishes. The morphine made her incapable of executing a valid will. "You knew that." Judge Okoye tapped the search history document. "You researched how to notarize documents for heavily medicated individuals. You canceled the appointment with the estate planner who was drafting an equal split will. You waited until your mother was too incapacitated to protest, and you forged her signature by controlling her hand." "I didn't forge anything." But Vanessa's voice had no conviction left. "The forensic analysis disagrees. The notary's photographs disagree. The medical records disagree." Judge Okoye picked up her gavel. "This hearing is concluded. The estate will be distributed according to the July 2019 will. The DA's office will contact you regarding criminal charges. You're dismissed." The gavel hit the sound block. Vanessa stood frozen for 3 seconds. Then she walked past me without looking, Douglas Reed following with his briefcase. In the hallway, I heard her voice rising, desperate, begging him to fix this. I sat in the courtroom for 5 minutes after everyone left. The silence felt like vindication. The house went on the market in February. Neither of us wanted it. It sold in 3 weeks to a couple with a baby. They loved the magnolia tree. Sarah called in March. The DA found more. "Your sister's in serious trouble." "How much more?" The $66,000 in transfers weren't gifts. Security footage shows your sister alone at the bank, using the power of attorney to access accounts. She forged the gift designation documents afterward. Everything. Everything. She also applied for a credit card in your mother's name in August, while your mother was on hospice. Used it to pay down her personal loans. Your mother never saw the statements because your sister had the mail forwarded to a P.O. box. I sat down. "How much did she charge?" $11,000. The credit card company flagged it after your mother's death, which is how it came to light. "What's she facing?" Forgery first degree, theft first degree, financial exploitation of a vulnerable person, identity theft. Combined exposure of 5 to 15 years. The trial was scheduled for September but never happened. Vanessa's attorney negotiated a plea deal in August. She pled guilty to forgery and financial exploitation. The other charges were dropped in exchange for cooperation. The sentencing hearing was on a Tuesday. I sat in the back of the courtroom. Vanessa wore a gray suit, kept her eyes down. When Judge Okoye asked if she had anything to say, Vanessa stood. She turned to face me. "I'm sorry," she said, voice cracking, but still controlled. "I was drowning financially. I'd lost my job, maxed my credit cards, taken a second mortgage I couldn't afford. When Mom got sick, I saw a way out. I told myself she'd want me to have the house anyway, that it didn't matter how I got it, but I was wrong. I manipulated her when she was dying. I stole from her. And I'm sorry." She waited. I didn't respond. Judge Okoye sentenced her to 4 years in prison plus restitution, $66,000 for the unauthorized transfers, $11,000 for the credit card fraud, court costs, and my legal fees. Total of $93,000. Vanessa's half of the estate sale went into a frozen account. After restitution, there'd be almost nothing left. I met with the probate attorney to finalize distribution. The house proceeds, minus fees, came to $387,000. Split evenly, $193,500 each. After Vanessa's restitution came out, her share was $100,500. Mine was untouched. I also inherited the studio contents. The pottery wheel, the easel, 63 paintings, Mom's art books with annotations in her handwriting, the chipped coffee mug. I donated the pottery wheel to Mom's old high school with a plaque, in memory of Patricia Monroe, who taught her students to create. The paintings I kept, one in each room of my condo. The largest, a magnolia tree in full bloom, painted the spring after I was born, hangs above my couch. My Aunt Lisa called in October. "Vanessa wants to know if you'll visit. She's in minimum security, taking art classes. She wants to apologize in person. She apologized at sentencing. She says it didn't feel real." I thought about Mom's note, the doubt Vanessa had planted. How easy it is to manipulate someone who's dying. "Tell Vanessa I wish her well," I said. "But I'm not visiting. I'm not writing. We're done." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Lisa was quiet. "She's still your sister." "No," I said. "She stopped being my sister when she held Mom's dying hand and used it as a pen." I hung up and made coffee in Mom's chipped mug. World's okayest mom. Good enough was always good enough for her. I still teach 8th grade English. This year we're reading To Kill a Mockingbird. When we get to Atticus and the Mad Dog, I talk about restraint, about how the most powerful people are often the quietest. The magnolia painting hangs where I see it every morning. I stand in front of it with coffee and remember Mom's hands mixing paint, the exact shade of white for the petals, the way she'd step back and squint at the canvas. I used my inheritance to pay off my condo and establish the Patricia Monroe Art Scholarship at her old high school. $5,000 annually for a graduating senior pursuing art or teaching. The first recipient was a girl named Maya studying ceramics. She sent me a photo of herself at the donated pottery wheel and said she felt like she was learning from a ghost. Every Sunday morning I go to the coffee shop near my place and order dark roast. I bring a book from Mom's collection. Last week, a Frida Kahlo biography. Mom's margin note, "Pain makes artists honest, but honesty makes art." I haven't spoken to Vanessa in 2 years. Her parole hearing is next spring. Lisa sends updates I don't ask for. Vanessa works in the prison library. Vanessa completed a certificate program. Vanessa wants to rebuild our relationship. I delete the messages. The thing Mom actually taught me, the lesson Vanessa missed, wasn't about forgiveness or family. It was about integrity, the difference between wanting something and being entitled to it. Looking at yourself in the mirror and knowing your hands are clean. Mom chose comfort care over aggressive treatment. Chose painting over hospital beds and clinical trials. Chose peace. Vanessa took that choice and twisted it into profit. I can understand fear. I can understand desperation. I can even understand the scramble to hold on to someone you're losing. But I can't forgive someone who held my mother's dying hand and used it as a pen. The magnolia tree in Mom's old yard blooms every spring. The new owners sent me a photo last April. White petals against blue sky, exactly like Mom's painting. I didn't need the house to remember her. I have the paintings, the scholarship fund, the books with her handwriting, the coffee mug. Vanessa has 4 years to think about what she traded them for. Mom used to say people show you who they are when nothing's watching except their conscience. Vanessa thought no one was watching. Thought dying made Mom easy to manipulate, made me easy to fool. She was wrong on both counts. I have the magnolia painting, the scholarship fund, Mom's books and annotations, and the mug that says she was good enough. Vanessa has a prison library card and $93,000 in debt. Some trades you can't undo.